Almost. Yep, okay. Hi, my name is Symone Jackson from broadcaster for the Alternative Fashion Media. I'm here to welcome you and introduce you, Ted Redmond, co-founder and owner of PaleBLUE Dot, to the show. Hi, Ted.
Hi, Symone.
And we are going to take a glimpse inside his sustainable business. Ted and his partner and co-founder, Colleen, have supported numerous fashion business with their program, BLUEdot Certified. We'll be addressing the gear to how BLUEdot supports fashion brands and becoming carbon neutral. So, Ted, the first little brief introduction I have for you, can you give us a brief introduction of how BLUEdot Certified carbon neutral and how it works?
Yes, absolutely. And first, thank you very much for having us with you today. We're honored to be able to talk with alternative fashion, so that's very fun.
Thank you.
As far as first maybe a little bit about our organization. We're focused entirely on helping businesses and individuals learn about our collective carbon footprint, its relationship to climate change, help people calculate their carbon footprint, determine ways of making reductions, and ultimately eliminate or repair that impact that we have on our environment. Now we have a couple different programs that relate to that, but our core program is the BLUEdot Certified Carbon Neutral. And the general program is applicable to all types of businesses. We've worked with mobile applications, hotels, travel destinations, also producers and wholesalers and retailers of goods and services, and traditional business services. So certified carbon neutral can be applied to lots of different, any business type really. But our BLUEdot Certified for apparel is focused specifically on the apparel industry. The main focus of that program is to help the apparel industry understand their carbon footprint, identify ways of making reductions, and if they're interested in becoming certified carbon neutral, then we have to go to the point of actually eliminating or repairing the impact from the entire full life cycle of the garment. So that would be from, harvesting of raw material all the way through to end user. Now, because, as you know, the apparel industry has, it's extremely complex. It typically involves a lot of players, and that means that there's a number of contributors to a garment's carbon footprint. That also means that there's potentially a large number of interested parties who might want to engage in carbon footprint reduction or even certification of being carbon neutral. Consequently, our program is available to be engaged in by anyone within the traditional supply chain. So a label can engage it, a manufacturer can engage it, or even a wholesaler or retailer. And we think there's added value at each one of those levels in a different way. And we think of our certification program ultimately as a partnership where we're working together with our partners to continue to improve our collective impact on the planet. Now, when it comes to the actual sort of process or how the certification works, we work with our partners to calculate their entire organization's footprint, as well as the life cycle carbon footprint of their products. For garments, that includes everything from harvesting of raw materials, the manufacture of fabrics, assembly of garments, transportation and distribution, and business operations of the retailers and the label itself. So everything it takes to get a garment manufactured and in the hands of the final owner. And once we have a good understanding of our partner's carbon footprint, we can then typically identify ways in which they can make footprint reductions beginning immediately, as well as frequently finding opportunities for them to work on into the future. For some, we're able to actually secure alternative energy, which helps to support their operations without the need for them to invest in alternative energy equipment, which would be a significant contributor to reducing that footprint. But as I noted earlier, the fashion industry is very complex, and with many players that touch a garment from design through to final creation. So that means that even the most environmentally conscious group can usually only reduce their footprint so far. The balance in that case is then offset through third-party internationally certified carbon offsets. And those are investments into carbon reduction or carbon capture projects that would not otherwise happen. And they're a mechanism to help reduce atmospheric carbon equal to the impact that we haven't been able to avoid. So the end result is the certification program. When someone buys a garment that is certified Blue Dot carbon neutral, its entire impact has been fully avoided or offset.
Wow. Oh, that is incredible, Ted. I like how you have really pointed down for fashion and the economics wise to it. I'm very impressed by that. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. In regards to fashion brands in particular, what are some important factors we have to be made more aware of when producing fashion, and how this correlates with getting Blue Dot certified?
That's an interesting question, and I think actually I think it's a great question for all of us to continue to ask: is what sort of factors should we be more aware of when it comes to carbon footprint and being environmentally sensitive? I would say probably the first thing everyone needs to understand, I think, is that your carbon footprint or your product's carbon footprint is not just about transportation fuel use. Most people seem to think of carbon footprint as, well, I put gas in my car and I drive around, that's my carbon footprint. Now, certainly that's a part of it, and shipping products on cargo ships or trucks or airplanes are definitely contributions to a carbon footprint. But they are usually a very small portion of the total carbon footprint of a product, specifically clothing products. Unless somebody's shipping by air, by the way. If anybody's listening and they're shipping by air, stop it. We can get things off of planes, put them on trains and boats and trucks. It's a vast reduction in the carbon footprint. Now, I think all businesses, especially fashion brands, though, need to understand that most of their choices they make ultimately are going to affect their carbon footprint. So as a label is working on designing their next year's collection, for instance, and looking at material selections, what they select is very crucial in minimizing their overall environmental impact as well as their carbon footprint. As an example, if somebody is designing a blouse and they have different choices to make, perhaps they could make it out of tencel. If they did, it might have a total carbon footprint roughly 7 times the garment's weight in greenhouse gas emissions. So if a shirt weighs 10 ounces, it would have roughly 70 ounces of greenhouse gas emissions. But that same garment, if it were made in cotton, would actually have 15 times its weight, so 150 ounces worth of emissions. And if they chose polyester, it might have something like 20 times its weight in greenhouse gas emissions. So how a garment is designed and what fabrics somebody chooses is the very basis of the core of their carbon footprint. And I think maybe the last thing that I'd point out is that fashion brands should be more aware of the fact that people are becoming much more cognizant of and concerned about the idea of carbon footprint. In fact, opinion polls make it clear that probably for the first time in history, the majority of consumers now are aware of the term carbon footprint. And most consumers want to support brands who make reductions or who eliminate their environmental footprint, carbon or otherwise. Their full environmental footprint is of concern to consumers. In fact, 9 out of 10 consumers in Gallup poll indicate that they will switch to brands that do minimize or avoid environmental footprint and reduce their carbon footprint. And 35% are what's known as lifestyle of health and sustainability, the LOHAS shoppers. And they're willing to pay more for products and services which tread as lightly as possible on our environment. And carbon neutral is not that common yet, but I think it's going to become increasingly more common as people begin to focus on that as the next horizon of environmental sensitivity.
Oh yeah, I have to agree, and I agree. If we are one of those people who are delivering by air. I agree with Ted. Stop it. It's not good. It's not good at all. I totally agree with you. I do. Now, do you provide consultations and other services that support and educate the business to reduce their carbon footprint?
Yes, absolutely. That's really our core mission, is to do anything we can to help increase awareness and dialogue about carbon footprint and help people find ways of reducing it. So the services that we provide that are sort of consultation based are both inside the certification program, as well as available to businesses who are just interested in learning and making positive change, but aren't maybe yet quite ready to engage carbon neutral. So for businesses within North America, we provide energy assessments where we can help assess their operations and look for ways of reducing their energy consumption. And that can be done depending on the facility, both remotely as well as in person. I'm a registered architect, so actually I've done that for many, many years, doing energy assessments. So that's one service that we do, is help people find ways of just reducing their energy consumption. We can also help businesses secure renewable energy to power their operations through coordination with utility companies and alternative energy generators. We can ear tag power that is created, alternative power. We can ear tag that specifically for use for our clients. We also provide carbon footprinting assessments for business operations, as well as product life cycle carbon footprinting. So we can help groups or manufacturers understand their footprint, even if they're not necessarily ready to eliminate it entirely. Just doing the assessment, we find, is very helpful, because typically that is the basis of being able to identify ways of making reductions. Lastly, we also provide carbon footprint comparison studies. And that's where we can take a detailed comparison of a given product or service and review them against their competition. It's a great way for a group who is looking to be environmentally competitive to really understand how they compare. Now, of course, if they are truly competitive, these studies are also a great way of illustrating to customers and the public why they are a better choice.
Wow, that's actually pretty incredible, Ted.
It's fun. We love what we do, and you know, some of these services we find are interesting, because a lot of organizations who are very much heartfelt interested in being environmentally sensitive, we do a study for them, and sometimes they're astounded at they didn't realize what their footprint is, and it engages some change. So we love doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is really amazing. Now, for the fashion industry at large, do you believe some of the resistance of change to neutral carbon footprint is due to our emotions and connections with fast fashion, similar to fast junk food?
Well, that's another interesting question. You know, I think probably yes, it is. Which I guess you know, some of that could bring up a whole discussion about what is our emotion in connection with fast fashion, right? I mean, what's that about? But I think it is a contributor. I think some of the core reasons are likely that although a lot of people are aware of carbon footprints and how they relate to climate change, I think that there are few leaders and few businesses yet that have really connected the dots between the idea of a carbon footprint and how we impact our environment and our climate, and connected those dots with the decisions that they're making, and having the light dawn on them that you know, we're actually all contributors to the problem. And if we are all contributors to the issue, that means that we can all be contributors to the solution. So I think people are just beginning to understand that we can do something about it. And you know, becoming BLUEdot certified is just one of the tools available to leverage better choices and to create a better environmental profile.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you guys are out there educating people, letting people know. That's a good thing.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Now, what future technological advances do you know of that allow us to trade and outsource globally without having to source locally? Can you present to us green technology that supports non-local outsourcing in regards to fashion supply chain? For example, green transportation and green factories?
Yeah, it's the first part of that. I'll take a low-hanging fruit, and that's a trend that's already there, and that's alternative energy. It's here now. It's effective. It's capable of supporting our needs without fossil fuels. And I think getting it applied to all of our manufacturing processes, both inside the apparel industry as well as out, is just a matter of time, because it's becoming more economically viable. And I think we'll see more and more people take advantage of that. And I'm going to be very excited to see that happen. You know, electricity is fluid, so that means that power comes from multiple locations, and it comes from multiple providers and goes into a grid. And right now, businesses and manufacturers can actually use alternative energy today without installing solar panels or wind generators on site. They can do that through renewable energy credits that literally ear tag renewable power for use by any organization, and it gets tracked. Now, of course, actually installing renewable energy on site is becoming much more feasible, and I think that's going to become very common in the years to come, but it's not quite there today, and it does take some capital to get it going. But I'd say that's one trend, one green technology that's definitely available. Another one, which frankly I haven't heard anybody talk about, and it could be my own pipe dream, but I think it's fascinating if you're aware of 3D printing and the ability to have design and send design via just internet connections to 3D printing machines to create materials and machine parts. And I mean, it's even used in the building industry. I think that there's an amazing potential to tap into from the fashion industry to use 3D printing. And I can imagine a day where we have an interrelated fashion industry, designers working globally with locally placed 3D fashion printers that produce then small batch, high quality garments anywhere in the world. And that kind of application would eliminate entirely, well, pretty much eliminate waste entirely. And it would vastly reduce transportation costs. And it could be a much more intimate connection with the end user. Again, I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but to me, I see that as a potential that it may take some time, but I think that's coming.
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be amazing when it does. I honestly can't wait for it. I'm on board for it.
You just go to the mall and you know, scan through images, find designers you like, select you know, the garment you want, and go off and get a molt and come back and your dress is knitted for you or whatever.
I never leave. Cool. I never leave and I'd be broke all the time.
Exactly.
All the time. So what are 3 top methods of sustainable production that you think are most important within the fashion industry supply chains that can contribute to treading lightly on our planet?
Okay. Well, that's a good question too. I'm not sure if I got 3, but there's definitely a couple. One that I've seen is it's a very heartwarming trend. Actually, is happening in the cotton industry. There's a lot of awareness that's happened. I don't know, maybe it's just been a year or so since it's become much more publicly aware of how much water is used in the cotton industry. And I've seen a number of folks working in that sector that are taking that very seriously and moving towards water capture and on-site water recycling systems. There's a manufacturer in particular that we've been working with in North Africa who has succeeded in capturing and reusing 80% of their water. So their water usage is dropping very rapidly, and they're working towards a 100% reuse closed system. I think that's a fantastic trend, and I expect that to continue because that's a payback opportunity. You know, if I'm not buying water, I can save some money. Another production trend that we've seen is recycled content fabrics, and there's a couple of cool things going on out there. One of them is mud jeans. They're in mud with 1D. I think there's 2. I think there's a mud with 2 Ds and there's a mud with 1D. Mud with mud jeans with 1D. They're in Europe. And they're an example of a very circular economy focused concept. And what they do is they offer folks, you can buy their jeans or you can lease their jeans. And if you lease their jeans, it really allows them the ability to kind of keep tabs on the clothing article. And when you're done with them, you send them back. And then they collect it and they can harvest the fibers to create new fabrics. So that means that they can recycle their own materials over and over and over. I think it's a fantastic circular economy concept. And I think that kind of thinking, and it starts with design. I think that kind of thinking is really going to push the fashion industry into a fully sustainable stance.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing.
That's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I would actually give those a try. Mud jeans? Yeah, I would definitely give those a try. That's really interesting.
They're a cool group. Very cool group.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, can you explain to us offsets? What development and projects are you most interested in supporting and are actually being created as we speak to neutralize our carbon footprint?
Yeah, well, I'll start off with the projects first because that's easier. A carbon offset project typically are things like development of alternative energy, like windmills, solar installations, that kind of thing. There are also carbon capture projects, which can be things like carbon scrubbers that might be put into coal plants or other installations. Methane capture that can be used at ag facilities, places that have a lot of dairy cattle that are then capturing that methane rather than having it just being emitted, and that can then be transformed into an energy source. Or things like reforestation, planting trees and making sure that they grow to maturity. One tree over about a 40-year lifespan will sequester about a ton of carbon. It varies depending on the species, but roughly a ton. Now, as far as what a carbon offset is, it's a little cerebral. And part of it is because we're not used yet to thinking of carbon, and it's not something you see. So it's not something that it's not very tactile yet. So the first thing to understand is that each of us has not only a carbon footprint, but it's a global carbon footprint. We share one atmosphere, so that means that any emission that I'm responsible for join with the emissions that you're responsible for and everybody else, and it impacts the entire globe, not just my backyard. The second thing to understand is that no matter how much I personally want to eliminate my carbon footprint, I can't do it. I can reduce it, but I can't yet get rid of it. It's because I'm in a society that uses primarily fossil fuels yet. So, the phone that I'm speaking to you on uses power. It's coming from a grid. I don't have control over that grid. Here in Minnesota, where I'm at, it's about 50% fossil fuels or a little bit heavier. So I can do lots of things to reduce my energy consumption. I can do lots of things to reduce my footprint, but I can't do it alone. I can't get rid of it all by myself. So the good news is with carbon offsets, I can both help fund projects that I want to see happen, which, by the way, the more alternative energy projects we develop, the greater and greater chance that I will be able to live a life free of fossil fuels, because those become more of an option in our culture. They're still a minor part of our energy development. They're about 11% of our grid. If we all could contribute to developing alternative energy, within 15 years, we could have 100% renewable energy, but we have to focus on it. So carbon offsets first help us to invest in alternative energy projects. And because carbon is a global resource, that project can be anywhere on the globe, and it will offset my impact. It doesn't have to be next to me. It's fun when it can be something I can see and touch and it's right next door, but it can be on the other side of the world, and it's going to be just as effective at helping me to make up my own impact. Now, as far as how offsets actually work, BLUEdot offsets are all fully third-party certified. There's a handful of certification agencies internationally. They all use the same kind of protocol. And to become third-party certified, projects have to meet a few strict criteria. The first is that they must be proven through third-party engineering assessments to eliminate or capture carbon emissions. So they have to be proven literally to reduce our collective carbon footprint. It can't just be a statement. It's engineered and then reviewed by other engineers to assure that it's doing it. Secondly, the projects cannot be legislated. So it can't be a project that's required by some sort of government overview or something like that. It has to be a project that would not otherwise happen. Thirdly, it must be a project that cannot happen financially without the use of carbon offsets. And that's assured through third-party audits, which look at the detailed financials of a project. And if it could be feasibly done without the partial gap funding that comes from a Blue Dot offset, then it doesn't qualify as a carbon offset. It's a project that can stand on its own, so it will go and stand on its own. But certified carbon offsets are intended to be gap financing to help projects happen that wouldn't otherwise happen if it weren't for that Blue Dot certified investment. So in this way, a Blue Dot certified carbon neutral partner is literally making a carbon reduction project or an alternative energy project happen that wouldn't happen without their help and without that financial assistance that the offsets provide. And the reductions that they're making happen are proven to be equal to the exact impact that they are having that they can't yet avoid.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I am
I think it's kind of cool, but I'm a geek.
Well, I'm a geek too, so it's okay. But
awesome.
I'm a different type of geek. I'm a movie geek, but I'm still a geek, so it's all right. But that's incredible. I'm really impressed.
Great, thank you.
No, you are welcome. So you have some great fashion brands that are partnering with you, and of course are joined as a member. Can you give us a brief tutorial on the requirements with working with fashion brands that might want to invest their time, energy, and work with contributing to sustainable business?
Yeah. I think the biggest aspect, or the biggest investment of their time and energy is a requirement to be willing to work towards improving an environmental footprint. There's a lot of groups out there that call themselves sustainable, call themselves green, and they don't really mean it. I'm not going to point anybody out, but I think we all know them when we see them. And there's unfortunately there's more of them than what I would like to see. There's a lot of folks I think that aren't necessarily really truly into it. So I think in order to do this, the first thing is somebody really has to want to explore ways of making their impact smaller and smaller. The process itself does take engagement by our partners, and it would be a meaningless effort if it didn't. But we work really hard to try to make it as easy, seamless as possible. So the first thing that they have to do is our partners need to work with us in order to collect what information we need to create a good carbon footprint profile, to calculate what their carbon footprint and their product's carbon footprint really is. We collect that information through questionnaires that we create uniquely for each one of our partners. And any information that they can't provide easily, we can usually find ways of getting to it. We have extensive database, and we have a lot of resources that we can draw from. So they don't have to be masters of all of the information, but there is usually crucial parts that we really need them to participate with us on. Secondly, for any group who is certified, we hope that they work with us as a partner so that they can design their collections or their next year's fashion and think about their operations from year to year so that we can help them identify ways of making better choices. We're encouraging them to reduce their footprint year over year. And when they do, we give them better and better price structures. So we're trying to provide some sort of financial investment with them to encourage better choices. So, and frankly, we're offering what's essentially free consultation to identify ways of reducing their impact. So we really we love it when our partners engage in that, and frankly, they all do because they are interested in reducing their impact. And we think for the time that they put in, they'll frequently be able to find some energy savings, which translates ultimately into operational savings. And meanwhile, their customers are going to benefit because their product is ever improving. And so we think that's a win-win-win.
Sounds like a win-win-win to me.
Yeah.
It does.
We can add one more win on there then.
Oh, great. Sounds good to me. That sounds perfect.
Awesome.
So for all the eco lovers and fashions out there, where can we follow you online?
Well, I like that question a lot. We're at www.BLUEdot Register.org. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Google Plus, and our website has both a section for businesses as well as for individuals. And if anybody ever has a question about a carbon footprint, they're just interested in learning a little bit about their own product or their own business or individually, we have email contact there, and I respond personally to anybody that's interested in learning. So we love engagement. That's
awesome. That's really great, Mr. Ted. You sound like you are the man with the green plan.
We are trying to be. Yeah, that's right.
We really do appreciate you being here for Alternative Fashion Media Podcast. We couldn't have been more excited to have you on here.
Well, thank you so much. We're very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, we were very happy to have you be part of it. So again, follow Mr. Ted Redmond on Twitter, Facebook. Please go to his website if you guys are interested in more about, fashion and eco. He is seriously the man with a plan. He can detail out all for you guys. And like he said, he personally responds back. So.
And I should have pointed out, we also have on our website a partners section. So most of our partners that are carbon certified do want to be on there. So we have a list of some of our partners. So folks that are just interested in seeing carbon neutral suppliers out there, we have access to that.
Oh, awesome. For you guys, please go out, go on his website, check it out, and see and talk to Mr. Ted all you want about fashion and ecos. Sorry. So, but again, we thank you for having you on here, Ted.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, and we hope you all out there have a great day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.
You were nervous, weren't you?